Picture this: a crisp San Francisco morning, the fog rolling off the bay, and me, Emily Dawson, standing in my designer suit, tapping my foot impatiently as I waited for my driver. Little did I know, the man behind the wheel was about to turn my life upside down and teach me a lesson I'd never forget. "You're just a driver," I sneered, tossing him a tem tip like it was pocket change. Oh, how wrong I was. If only I knew then what I know now. The very next day, I found myself standing in a cemetery, frozen in shock as I watched that same driver kneeling at my father's grave. In his hand, a medal, one that spoke volumes about a shared history I never knew existed. Who was this man? What connection did he have to my father, who had passed away quinze years ago? And most importantly, how could I have been so blind? Intrigued? Trust me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Stick around, because what happens next will make you laugh, cry, and maybe even look at the next stranger you meet a little differently. Before we dive in, let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly saw the people around you? The cashier at your local store, the janitor at your office, or yes, even your taxi driver? Keep that in mind as I bare my soul and share the mistake that brought me to my knees, literally. Are you ready to have your assumptions challenged and your heart opened? Then let's begin this journey together. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next in this series of life-changing encounters. Now, let me take you back to that fateful day when my world began to unravel. It was a foggy San Francisco morning, the kind where the mist clings to the hills like a reluctant lover. I stood outside my Pacific Heights mansion, the epitome of success in my Armani suit and Louboutin heels. My foot tapped an impatient rhythm on the driveway as I checked my watch for the 100th time. My driver was late, 5 minutes and 37 seconds late to be exact. In my world, every second was money, and today was no exception. I had a make-or-break meeting with potential investors, and this delay was unacceptable. As the sleek black car finally pulled up, I was a powder keg of frustration ready to explode. The driver stepped out, a man in his mid-40s with salt and pepper hair and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. His name tag read Marcus, but in that moment, he was just another obstacle in my path to success. "Ms. Dawson, I'm terribly sorry for the delay," he began, his voice laced with genuine remorse. "There was an accident on Van Ness, and I cut him off with a wave of my hand, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You're just a driver," I sneered. "Your one job is to be on time. Is that really so difficult to comprehend?" I saw something flicker in his eyes, hurt, disappointment, maybe even a hint of pity. But I was Emily Dawson, daughter of the late Colonel Richard Dawson, and I had an empire to run. I didn't have time for excuses or emotions. As we wove through the city streets, I caught Marcus glancing at me in the rearview mirror. There was something in his gaze that I couldn't quite place, something that made me shift uncomfortably in my seat. I pushed the feeling aside, focusing instead on the numbers I'd need to dazzle my potential investors. When we arrived at my office building, I pulled out my wallet and tossed a $100 bill onto the center console. "Here," I said coldly, "maybe this will motivate you to check your watch next time." What happened next still leaves me in awe. Marcus calmly picked up the bill, rolled down the window, and let it flutter away in the breeze. "Have a good day, Ms. Dawson," he said quietly, his voice steady but laden with an emotion I couldn't quite place. As I watched him drive away, I felt a strange tightness in my chest. Something about his reaction had shaken me, but I pushed the feeling aside. I had a meeting to crush. Little did I know, that encounter was about to change my life forever. The day passed in a blur of spreadsheets and handshakes. I closed the deal, of course, I always did. But as the adrenaline of success faded, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. It wasn't until late afternoon, when I overheard my assistant Sarah sobbing in the bathroom, that reality came crashing down. "I can't take it anymore, Mom," she was saying, her voice choked with tears. "She's impossible. I'm afraid to even breathe wrong around her. But I need this job. I need the health insurance. I don't know what to do." Her words hit me like a bucket of ice water. Was this how people saw me? A tyrant? A bully? I'd always prided myself on being tough, on demanding excellence. But had I crossed a line? That night, as I sat alone in my penthouse overlooking the city, I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus and the look in his eyes. For the first time in years, I felt ashamed. I found myself staring at a photo of my father, Colonel Richard Dawson, his medals gleaming on his chest. What would he think of the woman I'd become? The next morning, I woke up with a burning need to make things right. I decided to visit my father's grave, something I rarely did. The weight of his legacy had always been a heavy burden, and I'd avoided confronting it for too long. As I approached the familiar headstone, my heart nearly stopped. There, kneeling before my father's grave, was Marcus. He was gently placing something on the stone, a medal, glinting in the early morning sun. "What are you doing here?" I blurted out, my voice a mix of confusion and indignation. Marcus stood slowly, turning to face me with a look of quiet dignity. "Hello, Ms. Dawson," he said softly. "I suppose it's time you knew the truth." Over the next hour, as we sat on a nearby bench, Marcus unraveled a story that left me speechless. He had served alongside my father in the army, saving his life during a brutal ambush in Afghanistan. The medal he'd placed on the grave? It was the silver star he'd earned for his bravery that day. "Your father was more than just my commanding officer," Marcus explained, his eyes misting over. "He was my friend. When I lost my wife and son in a boating accident after returning home, he was there for me. He helped me find a reason to keep going." I listened, stunned, as Marcus went on to reveal that he'd worked for my family's company for years after my father's death. He'd only recently taken the job as a driver, needing a change of pace after what? I prompted, barely able to speak. Marcus took a deep breath, and I saw the pain etched in every line of his face. "After my daughter Lily was diagnosed with leukemia," he said quietly, "I needed a job with flexible hours so I could take her to treatments." In that moment, the full weight of my arrogance came crashing down on me. This man, this hero, had saved my father's life, had been a part of our family's story all along, and I had treated him like he was nothing. "Marcus, I began, but the words caught in my throat. How could I possibly apologize for my behavior? But Marcus just smiled, a gentle, understanding smile that broke my heart. "We all have our battles, Ms. Dawson," he said. "Your father taught me that. He also taught me that it's never too late to change course." As we sat there, the morning sun warming our faces, I felt something inside me shift. The walls I'd built up over years of trying to prove myself, of living up to my father's legacy, began to crumble. "Tell me about Lily," I said softly, realizing I needed to know more. About Marcus, about his struggles, about the man my father had been. Marcus's eyes lit up at the mention of his daughter's name. "She's my world," he said, his voice filled with love and pain in equal measure. "She's 12, and she's the bravest person I know. Even on her worst days, when the chemo makes her so sick she can barely move, she finds a way to smile." He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo of a beautiful young girl with a bright smile and a colorful headscarf. "This was taken last week, after her latest round of treatment," he explained. "The doctors, they say her chances aren't great, but Lily, she just keeps fighting." As Marcus spoke about Lily's daily struggles, the pain, the fatigue, the fear, I felt my heart breaking. I thought about all the times I'd complained about trivial things, all the times I'd treated people like Marcus as if they were beneath me. What battles were they fighting that I knew nothing about? "I'm so sorry, Marcus," I said, the words feeling wholly inadequate. "I had no idea." He shook his head, his smile tinged with sadness. "How could you have known? We all have our stories, Ms. Dawson. Your father understood that. He taught me that true strength isn't about how much money you make or how many people you can boss around. It's about how you treat others, especially when life gets tough." As we talked, I began to see glimpses of the man my father had been, not just the stern military hero I'd put on a pedestal, but a compassionate leader who valued people above all else. I realized how far I'd strayed from the values he'd held dear. In the days and weeks that followed, I threw myself into making amends. I started by apologizing to Sarah, my assistant, really listening to her concerns and needs. I was shocked to learn that her mother was also battling cancer and that the health insurance from her job was the only thing keeping her family afloat. I created a fund to support veterans and their families, with a special focus on childhood cancer research, and I made sure Marcus had all the support and flexibility he needed to care for Lily. But more than that, I began to see the world, and the people in it, differently. I realized that everyone has a story, battles they're fighting that we know nothing about, and I vowed to approach each interaction with empathy and kindness, remembering how close I'd come to missing out on knowing an extraordinary person. One particularly poignant moment came about a month after my encounter with Marcus at the cemetery. I decided to visit Lily in the hospital, bringing along a care package filled with books, art supplies, and cozy blankets. As I entered her room, I was struck by the sight of this small, fragile girl hooked up to various machines. But then she smiled, and I saw the strength that Marcus had spoken about. "You must be Ms. Dawson," Lily said, her voice weak but warm. "Dad talks about you a lot. He says you're helping other kids like me." I felt tears prick my eyes as I sat down beside her bed. "Your dad is an amazing man," I said softly. "He's taught me so much." We spent the afternoon talking and drawing, and I was in awe of Lily's resilience and optimism. As I was leaving, she handed me a drawing, a colorful rainbow arcing over a stormy sky. "Dad says that even on the darkest days there's always hope," she explained. "I thought maybe you could use a rainbow too." That drawing now hangs in my office, a constant reminder of what truly matters in life. As for Marcus, he became more than just an employee or even a friend. He became a mentor, helping me understand the man my father truly was and the values he'd held dear. Together, we worked to honor both our father's legacies, finding healing and purpose in the process. I wish I could tell you that this story has a perfect happy ending, that Lily made a miraculous recovery, that all my past mistakes were instantly forgiven. But life isn't that simple. Lily's battle continues, with good days and bad, and my journey of growth and redemption is ongoing. There are still moments when I catch myself slipping into old habits, when the pressure of the business world threatens to harden my heart again. But now, I have a new perspective. Every morning, as I sip my coffee and prepare for the day ahead, I look at Lily's rainbow drawing and ask myself, who will I encounter today? What battles might they be fighting? How can I be a force for good in their lives? So, dear reader, I leave you with this question. Who in your life have you underestimated or misjudged? What hidden heroes might be walking among you, just waiting for a chance to share their story? Remember, it's never too late to change, to open your heart, and to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. Trust me, I'm living proof. Don't forget to follow this channel and turn on notifications for more stories that will challenge your assumptions and warm your heart. And if you haven't already, check out our exclusive playlist of redemption stories. You won't want to miss a single one. Until next time, this is Emily Dawson, signing off, a changed woman, thanks to a driver who taught me the true meaning of heroism, humility, and the power of a simple act of kindness.